Hey guys, welcome to the video. Salt here. Today we're going to be going over the Warframe Banshee Prime. So let's go into our little salt cave here. We have the top commenter of the last video. It's actually a tie between two people. It's Project Sunny 309 and Roban. And then we have the first commenter of the last video, the okayest player. And then we have our recent supporters of Colonel Sir 06, Alfofo, and Toxic Sneeze. Thank you so much for your support. All right, and of course today we're doing Banshee Prime. I'm going to go ahead and go down to the arsenal here. Now, before we go over the mods and the externals on Banshee, I want to go over the abilities on Banshee for anyone that is not aware of them. And to do that, we have recruited the help, of course, of Other Salt. Other Salt is out in the field in the simulacrum. He's going to be showing off these abilities. I'm going to go ahead and switch over to him right now. Here we go. Hey guys, Other Salt here. We're going to be going over Banshee Prime's abilities. We're going to be starting with her passive, which is just that weapon noises are hushed. That's really cool for specific game modes like spy missions. Now her one is going to be Sonic Boom. You're going to emit a cone of impact damage that ragdolls enemies. Shaboop. It's pretty decent. Also, there's an augment for it that will armor strip those enemies as well. Two is going to be Sonar. You're going to emit a 360 sound wave that tracks enemies and highlights a part of their body. Hitting highlighted body parts causes damage to be multiplied. And recasting Sonar can allow additional body parts to be highlighted. And the same body part can be highlighted 2 times. And then if you hit that body part that was highlighted twice, those 2 highlights can work with each other to further multiply that damage. There are some weird enemies where they can actually get more than 2 highlights applied to the same body part. And there's also some weird enemies where it just doesn't work at all. But like 99% of the enemies, it's going to be 2 max for each body part. There's also a pretty decent augment for this where it allows killed enemies that had sonar on them to pulse sonar again, and it will pulse with the remaining duration that it had. Okay, we'll do Silence next. Silence is going to be a 2-second stun. It's an aura that's a 2-second stun, and it disables special abilities, and overguarded enemies will not be affected while they have overguard on. But special abilities could be things like Eximus abilities. A lot of the special abilities are actually the Eximus abilities, which are a little bit unfortunate because if they have overguard, this won't affect them. But as soon as their overguard is stripped, they won't be able to use their little Eximus abilities. But there are some basic enemies that also, won't be able to use their special attacks either. They could just use their normal attacks. Okay, let me get some energy here. And the fourth ability, and probably one of the worst abilities in the entire game, is Soundquake. And this is actually the one we're going to be subsuming out. But I just wanted to show it. Someone in the previous Warframe video wanted me to show all the abilities. And that's understandable, for people that don't know these Warframes. But we'll show Soundquake here. So it's channeled ability. You plant your hands on the ground and you emit sound waves around her that do blast damage and stagger enemies. You also put yourself in this compromising position. I've actually seen Salt do this purposely in Duviri to attract those mechanical horses to come to him. Really sick bastard, if I have to say so. Okay. So yeah, that's Soundquake. Let me go ahead and go on to the actual build here. And we'll show the ability that we're going to be subsuming over the 4. Because we don't want to use Soundquake. So this is going to be Gloom. Gloom is going to be a slow and a lifesteal for you and allies as long as you're in the radius, which, you're always going to be in the radius. So, but these dudes are slowed. You can't really tell it now, but if I push them with the 1 and they try to get up, you see how slow they get up here. They're like moving extremely slow getting up. So it's really good CC. And also, if I was hurt by just hitting a dude once, it's usually just going to top your entire health off. So that is Banshee's abilities, and Gloom is going to be the ability that we put over Banshee's 4. So I'm going to go ahead and wave to Salt and give it back to him. Wow, great job, Other Salt. Great job, as usual. Okay, let's go into Banshee here. Now, there's 2 unfortunate things about Banshee. The first thing is that nothing in her kit really pushes her to a certain survivability type. Like most Warframes have something in their kit that pushes them towards health and armor, shield and adaptation, or shield gate. Banshee doesn't really have anything that pushes her to any of those 3 things. And so the first thing you have to do with Banshee is kind of decide, well, which one of those 3 survivability types do I want to play? The second unfortunate thing about Banshee now this is a little bit less unfortunate, it's just more of a nuisance when you're trying to make a build, really, is that she wants all of the stats. She wants range, she wants strength, she wants duration, and she wants efficiency. And so most Warframes don't usually want every stat. They usually want maybe like 2 out of the 4 basic stats. And so you're able to dump a lot of stats and then like supercharge others. So if anyone watched the Neza video, for instance, Neza's able to supercharge her strength by just dumping all of the other stats. Banshee can't really do that. Banshee wants all of them. So you're not really able to supercharge any stat specifically. Okay, so again, the first thing we have to do is we have to identify what type of Banshee we're going to play for our survivability type. So let's go into our build here. And I have 2 showcases here. I have a damage reduction showcase and a shield gate showcase. And there's actually 2 forms of damage reduction. There's health and armor, and then there's shield and adaptation. So before we go over the health and armor, I just want to explain that Banshee cannot be a shield and adaptation frame. Actually, let me just take off these here, and I'll just show this for people that don't know. So for shield and adaptation, obviously adaptation is a mod you have to use. Adaptation is where you get your damage reduction out of, but damage reduction needs to work on a pool of a resource, whether that's health or shields. Now, how adaptation works is that it doesn't immediately give you 90% damage reduction. You need to take damage, and then your damage reduction starts like going up and up and up to eventually 90%. And so on a health and armor Warframe, for a Steel Path viable build, you're looking at 2,000 health. But for a shield and adaptation Warframe, because you're not always at that constant 90% damage reduction, you really want about a 4,000 shield pool for you to be a viable shield and adaptation build, which honestly a lot of Warframes can't reach. A lot of Warframes are not able to reach a 4,000 shield pool. Only a few Warframes can. So, but let me just like show that here. I'll just type in shield, and I'm going to just plop on every single shield mod. There might even be like another, but these are the 4 big ones here. So 4 shield mods. Honestly, even on a shield and adaptation build, you wouldn't want to have all 4 of these on here because it's like using all of your mod, half of your mod slots on shield mods. And even with all 4 of these, she's not even at 2,000 shields. So she can't be, oh my goodness, my 2 cats are fighting. My little kitten is in the window, and my adult cat wants to be in the window. So they're both fighting for the window. So that you might hear them in the background. Dobby, leave her alone. Okay. So shield and adaptation is out of the question. Can't be a shield and adaptation frame. So she has to choose between a health and armor or a shield gate frame. So let's put on our basic health and armor setup, which is going to be blessing is one of the most important. Health conversion is one of the most important. And then you just have the basic stuff like the umbral set here. Okay. So for health and armor, a viable health and armor Steel Path setup is going to be 2,000 health, 2,000 armor. So blessing gives us 1,200 health, which is the largest amount of health you can get in one slot. And health conversion gives us 1,350 armor in one mod slot, which is the most amount of armor you can get in one slot. Now, health conversion is a conditional where when you take damage, you lose a stack. And then like every 3 seconds, you can technically lose another stack, but you'll usually gain it back. But you can really only ever bank on 900 armor out of health conversion instead of the full 1,350. Sometimes you'll be at 1,350, but a lot of times you'll be at 9. So when you're doing your math to try to get up to 2,000 armor, only count 900 of health conversion. So if we look at our health here, we have 1,000 health, and then when blessing is stacked up, we're going to be at another 1,200. So health, we're golden. We're over 2,000. That's fine. For armor, though, this is 900 plus the 378. Let's just say 400 for a nice even number. So 400 plus 900, that's 1,300. We're going to be using Nairu as a focus tool, which gives us 200 passive, so that's 1,500. But that's still not enough. That's not enough damage reduction to have a viable Steel Path build. So we need to get a little bit more armor to get closer to that 2,000 mark. And to do that, we need to use 2 blue Archon shards for armor. That's why if you notice they have 2 Archon shard slots left out here, is because I just wanted to showcase that you would need to have 2 blue shards. Tau Forge, if you can get them. If not Tau Forge, you might want to get 3 shards, but 2 to 3 blue shards for armor. Okay, so that's how you would build for the health and armor, how to get her set for health and armor. Let's look at shield gate. Now, there's different ways to shield gate. Shield gators don't always build the exact same way. A lot of shield gates use brief respite and the augur sets. Some of them don't use both. Some of them only use augur. Some of them only use brief respite. Some of them use both of them. Some shield gate builds use rolling guards. Some don't. Some shield gate builds use catalyzing shields. Some don't. But you're still going to have mods that you need to have on your build to make your build a viable shield gating build. So usually when you compare a damage reduction and a shield gate build, usually shield gating builds use a little bit less slots than a damage reduction build. Like, none of the arcanes have to be used in a shield gating build. And, typically shield gators sometimes won't even use rolling guard or catalyzing shield. So like this could technically look like a shield gating build. There's some unfortunate things about shield gate though, where like if you're going to use the brief respite and augur set, you need to have a spammable ability. And so sometimes you're forced to search for a subsume that's spammable because of it. I personally do not like playing shield gate builds unless I have to. Unless I am specifically deciding to go to level cap, I will use a shield gate build. And that's because at level cap, damage reduction no longer works. Damage reduction stops working at about level 3 to 5,000. Your damage reduction build will just not work and you have to play shield gate. Shield gate, though, has unfortunate things about it where it's not as consistent, especially over a longer period of time. A lot of times you're going to have to get picked up off the ground, which I don't like. I think as an LR4, you shouldn't have to get picked up off the ground. Although when you're doing a level cap run, you're typically just kind of accepting that you're going to have to pick each other up. So my Banshee is going to be building for health and armor damage reduction, but shield gate is fine too. And it's because Banshee doesn't really force herself to be in any specific survivability type. Okay, so now that we've gotten that out of the way, we can go over the other parts of the Banshee build. So, and again, as a disclaimer, this is a damage reduction build, and so this will not work on level cap. This will work to about level 3 to 5,000 enemies, and then it will fail. Okay, so we're going to have Umbral Vitality, Umbral Fiber, and Umbral Intensify. So we're going to have 3 Umbrals. It's because we're going to, need health, we're going to need armor, and we definitely want ability strength because as Banshee, you have the strongest buff in the entire game with Sonar. Sonar is incredibly powerful. We have Prime Continuity for ability duration because everything we use needs duration. Health Conversion is going to be for a large amount of armor. It's going to be helping us get our armor and health build. Augur Secrets is for ability strength. The bottom part of it, the energy spent on abilities is converted to shields. That's okay for a health and armor build, but it's not really needed. It's more of like a shield gating build focus. But we still get some ability strength out of this, which is nice. This slot right here is a flex slot. And I'll go over a few options that could be here. So I'm going to skip this for now. And then we're going to use Stretch for ability range. In the Aura slot, we're going to go for Growing Power for ability strength. And in the Exilis, we're going to go for Power Drift for ability strength. In our first Arcane, we're going to be going for Molt Augmented for a large amount of ability strength. And in the second Arcane slot, we're going to be going for Arcane Blessing for a large amount of health. This will, like I said before, it's going to help to flesh out our health and armor build. Okay, so let's go back to this last slot here. So, Banshee has probably one of the strongest buffs in the entire game with Sonar. And so you would naturally want to stack a crazy amount of strength on Banshee to make Sonar, like, godlike. I mean, it's already godlike, but you could, like, supercharge it if you could. The thing is, you really can't, because let's type in ability strength here. All right, ability strength. So let's look at the 2 most powerful ability strength mods. It's good Blind Rage, 99 ability strength, but unfortunately you get minus 55 ability efficiency. And again, Banshee wants everything. She wants all 4 stats. I really try to fit in Blind Rage on a lot of builds because most Warframes can fit it if they just kind of pull some shenanigans to to try to recoup some like energy conservation or something. But you can't do that on Banshee. She's not really able to use Blind Rage and work consistently. Transient Fortitude is plus 55 ability strength, but you get negative 27% ability duration. That negative duration, it doesn't seem like a lot, but it makes the build less consistent by having that negative ability duration, because now you have to cast Silence more often, and you also have to, or it's also causing more energy drain from Gloom, because efficiency and duration work on energy drain. So, you know, the two big ones here, Blind Rage and Transient Fortitude, they're nice, they're tempting to put in this slot right here, but they make our build less consistent. You are going to have periods where you are energy starved, and I don't like that in my builds. Energy conversion it's weird. It's good on certain Warframes, but not on Banshee. And then Precision Intensify only works on your 4, where our 2 is really the one we want to supercharge. So a lot of these other plus ability strength mods, unfortunately, don't really work on our Banshee. And so, you know, you might be saying, well, you know, what the hell? You're putting casting speed here when you're talking about ability strength. Well, let me try to combine those two things together here. So we're going to want casting speed anyway on Banshee, because Banshee spams her 2 a lot. And normally we would use shards to give casting speed. We would use maybe like two yellow shards to give ourselves casting speed. Well, if there's no good mods for ability strength, why don't we use those 2 Archon shards that we would normally be using for casting speed and use them for ability strength, and then put a plus casting speed mod in the slot instead? And so that's the thinking behind using natural talent. Now, you can kind of make that decision yourself. Maybe you don't like natural talent. Maybe you want to use something else here. Also, Banshee has some pretty cool augments. Let me go to the augments here. For a very, very long time, I used Resonance. For years. Actually, that's why this slot is misformed. It's because I used to have Resonance here. This was my old build, was this exact build plus Resonance. But because most targets can only be most limbs can only be affected twice by sonar, you can just double cast sonar. So like, I would rather double cast sonar than to have to spend a whole mod slot to have Resonance double cast it for me, or to have to cast it once and then Resonance cast it the second time for me, basically. So that was my reasoning this morning why I switched Resonance off and I put natural talent here, is because I would rather just double cast sonar or cast it more often, one or the other. You either cast sonar like every 5 to 10 seconds, or you double cast it like once every 15-ish seconds. Now, the other option for this slot right here would be Sonic Fracture. This is more if you want to utilize the 1 to armor strip. Could be pretty decent. You could put Sonic Fracture here and get some like armor strip on specific enemies. Personally, I don't value that as much. I like natural talent better, but you know, it's a viable option, Sonic Fracture. Okay, so that's my reasoning for natural talent. I think we can go over the externals now. I'm going to actually plop in those 2 blue shards now that we've kind of gone over that. Armor. And then I'll be closer to that 2,000 mark, and I'll be at a good damage reduction value. Externals for Banshee it's kind of open. You can kind of use whatever you want. I do want to make people aware that AoE actually does work on Banshee's little sonar pingy things that are on people. Like, you don't need to use like very high accuracy weapons. You could just use AoE weapons and you'll still get the damage bonus out of those weak points, which is why I really like the Trumna. It has like little AoE pellets, and it has the big explosion, like alternate fire. I just really like the Trumna on Banshee. So that's why I use it, but you can use whatever you would like. For the secondary, again, it's kind of open. You can kind of use whatever the hell you want. But I like the Azima. The Azima is a, with some new arcanes that came out, it's actually an overguard generator now. So the Azima is effectively it's a viral spreader, it's an overguard generator, and you could also build it out for crowd control as well. I'm going to have a updated video on the Azima on Monday where I go into more detail on exactly how this works. I will show the build, but people are probably going to be like, what the hell are you doing here, Salt? And it's going to be very hard to explain this without like having a 30-minute video. So on Monday, I will do a video on this exactly. But this is an overguard generator. It's just going to passively produce overguard for you, and you basically have to do close to nothing to do it. Okay, in the melee slot, again, kind of up to you. Use whatever the hell you like. I'm going to put the Praetos just because it has a passive effect where it makes you a little bit quicker on your bullet jumps. But you could use whatever you want there. In the focus school, I do suggest using Unairu because Unairu has a passive right in the middle. You don't even have to do anything for this. Actually, no, it's not right in the middle, isn't it? It's Stone Skin down here. So you don't have to do anything. It's a passive that just, you get this as long as you have Unairu on and you have Stone Skin unlocked. Increases armor for Warframe and Operator by 200. It's not a lot. It's only 200 where you want to reach 2,000, but it helps you to reach that 2,000 mark. The other thing to note, though, is even though Banshee is very energy hungry, most of Zenric will not work on Banshee, and it's because our Banshee uses Gloom, which is a channeled ability, and all of those effects that say energy per second or energy over a certain amount of seconds do not work when you have a channeled ability active. So most of Zenric, almost all of Zenric, will not work when you have Banshee with Gloom, which is why we use Nairu. For the pet, you're pretty much open to use whatever you want. I'm going to be using my Panzer Phyla just to spread some viral around and to use Synth Deconstruct to get some health orbs to help with Arcane Blessing. And that's pretty much it. Her externals are pretty free to use whatever you want, except if you are going to go the armor and health route that I'm going, you should use 2 blue shards for plus armor. Everything else is kind of optional. I use 2 for strength, like I said, just to kind of charge her 2 up a little bit more. And then I used 1 for effectiveness on energy orbs to help her with energy. So, all right, that's how you build out Banshee. I'm going to show this in about 5 minutes of Steel Path gameplay, just to show off the basic playstyle of Banshee. Do my Steel Path, do about 5 minutes. All right, so we're not really going to be casting our 1 very much. We're going to be casting our 2 quite often. We're going to be casting it. You can do a few things with the 2. You can either cast it, like double cast it every 15 seconds, or you can cast it like once every 5 to 10 seconds. And that'll ensure that most dudes around you have 2 stacks of sonar on them. Silence, we're just going to make sure it's up all the time. And Gloom, we're just going to make sure it's up all the time. That's basically it. All right, I'm going to go ahead and throw Gloom on, throw Silence on, get a sonar out, shaboop. Get another sonar out. I think I'll do the sonar route where I cast it like once every 10-ish seconds. Throw another sonar out. Now, if you are going to use an AoE weapon, keep in mind you can still self-stagger. So that's something I do sometimes on Banshees. I'll self-stagger myself. So that's up to you if you want to use Prime Sure, put it in the eggs list. You could if you really wanted to. But I just value that 15 ability strength a little bit more. Going to recast our Silence. You don't have to, if you're going to use an AoE weapon, you don't have to be super, super anal about looking for those weak points. You can just kind of play normally, and through pure attrition, you'll be getting a lot of your weak points hit. I do think that Banshee could use maybe a little bit of love from DE. Something I would really like them to do, because Silence is not super strong. There's like a lot of videos out there that like glaze on silence, but the problem with it is that it does not affect Eximuses. And like the higher you go, like once you're 10 minutes in, half the friggin' enemies are Eximuses. And so for it to not to work on like half the enemies, and those are the ones you actually want to like stop doing their abilities, kind of sucks. So like I would like DE. You know how every ability, like when you subsume it, people get a reduced effect, but the actual Warframe still gets like a bigger effect? Like what if silence on Banshee specifically, like if Banshee used silence, it works through Overguard. But when other people subsume silence, it just works normally like it does currently. That'd be cool. And that'd be a way to kind of boost Banshee up without like messing too much with her. That was a big self-stagger on myself, as is tradition. So I think on Monday I'm going to put out that Azima build, the Overguard generator. You can copy the build I have right now. It's just going to be very confusing. It's because you actually value weird stats on the Azima. You value negative fire rate and plus magazine size. And so like your best Riven stats are actually going to be one of those two things, either plus magazine size or minus fire rate. I think my Riven is minus fire rate. And it's because there's kind of a sweet spot on the Azima. The Azima can last for 30 seconds when you plop it out. And so you want it to last for 30 seconds. And to do that, you need it to either shoot slower or have a bigger magazine. So you kind of do both of those things. And you just got to kind of like test all your mods until you reach that about 30-second mark. And then you're golden. You have basically a pseudo ability that lasts for 30 seconds and generates Overguard. Kind of randomly generates Overguard if it hits a dude. But if you don't know what the hell to do with your secondary slot, I mean, that's a pretty damn good use of it. It's just a random Overguard generator. Banshee is one of my favorite Warframes in the game. It's like Necros, Banshee, Garuda, Harrow. I don't know. They're probably like my top 4 or 5. I don't know how many I named there. I played Banshee for a very long time. Like I said, the only change I did this morning for my old build was I changed Resonance into Natural Talent. And honestly, you could technically keep on Resonance if you really wanted to. Friggin', you know, I could silence him. Hopefully he didn't put the mag bubble on me. I guess we'll tell here. Nope. Okay. It's like, if I down myself, then I know I had the mag bubble on. All right, I think we're at about 5 minutes here. Let's head to extraction when it pops up.
When you need it, extraction is
ready. That could be like a way, though, of DE, maybe like keeping Banshee in line, is not really letting her be able to supercharge her sonar. Like, you can't just dump every stat and have a great sonar. You kind of need everything with it. Well, you probably could do like a specific sonar build, but it might be just not as good.
A valuable lesson.
So that's how to play a Banshee Prime. Of course, remember, you can change your survivability type. You might want to do a... if you are intending specifically to be doing level cap, you definitely don't want to go with a damage reduction build. You want to go with a shield gating build. But if you are not going to be doing level cap with Banshee, I would suggest the damage reduction build because it is much comfier. You can literally leave your computer, go take a shit for like 10 minutes, come back, and your dude's still alive. Whereas a shield gating build is... it's more complicated and it's not as consistent. So, but of course, at level cap, you can't really do damage reduction, so you're kind of stuck on shield gate. So yeah, that's Banshee there. If you guys like the video, consider giving it a like. If you haven't subbed yet, consider subbing, or tell me what I can do to earn your sub. And I hope you guys have an amazing day. All right.